The flickering neon sign of "Lose Loans" cast long shadows across Finger's face as he nervously chewed a fingernail. His real name was Mikey, but everyone called him Fingers because of how nimble he was. Unfortunately, nimble fingers didn't always translate to a full belly. Tonight, Mikey's belly was rumbling louder than a garbage truck. He needed a score, and fast. Mikey wasn't a bad guy, not really. Just unlucky. He'd lost his job at the car wash, and the rent was overdue. He tried asking his sister, but she was struggling too. So, with a heavy heart, and a lighter conscience than he'd like to admit, he'd decided to try his luck in the nicer part of town. He walked for what felt like miles, the expensive houses looming large and silent. Finally, he spotted one that looked promising, lights off, no car in the driveway, and a slightly overgrown rose bush perfect for concealing a quick entry. Taking a deep breath, Mikey scurried through the yard. He jiggled the back window latch, unlocked. He slipped inside, his heart pounding like a drum solo. The house was quiet, almost too quiet. He crept through the living room, his eyes darting around for something easy to grab. A fancy watch. A wallet. But then, he saw it, a sleek, black laptop sitting on a desk in the study. Perfect. Small, valuable, and easy to carry. He grabbed it, ignoring the nagging feeling in his gut that told him this wasn't a good idea. He was in and out in under 5 minutes, leaving the house as undisturbed as he'd found it. As he slipped back into the shadows, Mikey couldn't shake the feeling that he'd just made a terrible mistake. But hey, at least he'd have enough money for rent, maybe. He just needed to find a buyer. Tomorrow, he'd visit Lou. Maybe Lou wouldn't ask too many questions. The next morning dawned gray and drizzly, mirroring Mikey's mood. The laptop felt heavier than it should have in his backpack, a constant reminder of his questionable choices. He told himself it was just nerves, but deep down, he knew he was playing a dangerous game. Lose Loans was a cramped, cluttered space filled with dusty guitars, broken electronics, and forgotten dreams. Lou himself was a stout man with a walrus mustache and eyes that seemed to see right through you. He was currently arguing with a customer over the value of a chipped porcelain doll. Mikey waited patiently, shifting from foot to foot. Finally, the customer stormed out, muttering about being ripped off. Lou sighed and turned his attention to Mikey. Well, he said, his voice gravelly. If it isn't Fingers. What have you got for me today? Mikey nervously unzipped his backpack and pulled out the laptop. I found this, he mumbled, avoiding Lou's gaze. Works great. Barely used. Lou took the laptop and examined it carefully, turning it over in his hands. Found it, huh? He said, raising an eyebrow. That's usually how it goes. He opened the laptop and started poking around, his fingers flying across the keyboard. It's got a password, Lou said, frowning. You know the password? Mikey shook his head. No, but it's probably something simple. Like password or 1234. Lou chuckled. Yeah, right. I'll take a look. He connected a small device to the laptop. I'll give you 50 for it, he said, without looking up. 50. Mikey's heart sank. He'd been hoping for at least 100. 50. That's it. This is a good laptop. Lou shrugged. Take it or leave it. I gotta crack the password, then wipe the hard drive. It's a lot of work. Mikey hesitated. He really needed the money, but 50 seemed like an insult. I'll think about it, he stammered, grabbing the laptop back. Maybe I can sell it online. Lou just shrugged again, already turning his attention to a pile of tangled jewelry. Suit yourself, he said. But don't come crying to me when you can't get rid of it. Mikey left Lose Loans feeling even worse than before. He was stuck with a stolen laptop and no idea what to do with it. Back in his cramped apartment, Mikey stared at the laptop. Selling it online seemed like his only option, but he knew next to nothing about computers. He'd seen his cousin do it once, using some website called Sell It Now, but it looked complicated. He sighed. He'd have to figure it out. He powered on the laptop again, the screen illuminating his face in the dim light. The password prompt stared back at him, mocking his ignorance. He tried password 123456 and even his own birthday. Nothing worked. He felt a surge of frustration. How was he supposed to sell this thing if he couldn't even get into it? Then, he noticed a small sticker on the bottom of the laptop, tech support, call 555 help. Maybe, just maybe, he could trick them into giving him the password. It was a long shot, but he was desperate. He grabbed his burner phone, the one he used for things he didn't want traced back to him. He dialed the number, his heart pounding in his chest. A robotic voice answered, "Thank you for calling tech support. Please enter your account number." Mikey panicked. Account number? He didn't have an account number. He hung up, feeling defeated. This was hopeless. Suddenly, an idea sparked in his mind. Maybe he didn't need the main password. Maybe there was a guest account, or some other way to bypass the login screen. He started clicking around, exploring the different options. He stumbled upon a "forgot password" link. He clicked it, and a new window popped up, asking for a recovery email address. Mikey hesitated. He didn't have the email address, of course. But then, he saw another option, security questions. He clicked that, and a new set of questions appeared. What is your mother's maiden name? What was the name of your first pet? What city were you born in? Mikey smirked. He might not know much about computers, but he knew how to guess. He started typing, trying common names and places. On the third try, he got it right. The laptop unlocked, and the desktop appeared. Mikey felt a surge of triumph. He was in. Now, to find some pictures to post online. The desktop was surprisingly clean. No personal photos, no documents lying around, just a few standard icons and a shortcut to a folder labeled Research. Mikey clicked on it, figuring it might contain some generic work files he could use to prove the laptop was functional. Inside the Research folder, however, was a single folder titled Project Nightingale. It was locked with a password. Mikey groaned. Another password? He briefly considered giving up, but his curiosity was piqued. Why would someone password protect a folder labeled Research? He right-clicked on the folder and selected Properties. He noticed the folder was unusually large, containing hundreds, maybe thousands, of files. He also saw that the folder was encrypted, using some kind of advanced encryption software he'd never heard of. He decided to try a simple password cracker, a program he'd downloaded years ago and promptly forgotten about. He ran the program, selected the Project Nightingale folder, and crossed his fingers. The program whirred and clicked, displaying a progress bar that seemed to move at a snail's pace. After what felt like an eternity, the password cracker finally returned a result, password found, .good. Mikey stared at the screen, puzzled. .good? What kind of password was that? He typed it into the password prompt, and the Project Nightingale folder unlocked. Inside, he found a chaotic collection of files, photos, maps, journal entries, and documents with strange, coded names. The photos were the first thing that caught his eye. They were pictures of people, mostly young women, taken in what appeared to be candid, unsuspecting moments. Some of the women looked familiar, like the waitress from the diner down the street, and the girl who walked her dog in the park every morning. The maps were even stranger. They were detailed street maps of the city, with certain locations marked with red circles. The journal entries were filled with cryptic notes and observations, referring to people by numbers and symbols instead of names. Mikey felt a chill run down his spine. This wasn't just some random research project. This was something dark. Something dangerous. He started to close the folder, wanting to forget he'd ever seen any of it. But something stopped him. He had to know what it all meant. He clicked on one of the journal entries, his hands trembling. The first line read, Subject 42 secured. Location confirmed. Awaiting Dr. Good's instructions. Mikey slammed the laptop shut, his hands shaking. He paced his tiny apartment, the image of the journal entry burned into his mind. Subject 42 secured. Awaiting Dr. Good's instructions. Who was Subject 42? And who was Dr. Good? The whole thing felt like something out of a horror movie. He knew he should just delete the files, wipe the hard drive, and forget he'd ever seen any of it. But he couldn't. The faces in the photos haunted him. The waitress from the diner, the girl with the dog, were they in danger? Had something already happened to them? He opened the laptop again, his heart pounding in his chest. He scrolled through the photos, searching for clues. He noticed that many of the photos were taken in the same locations, the park, the diner, the library. He started to compare the maps to the photos, trying to find a connection. Then, he saw it. One of the red circles on the map was located near the diner. And another one was near the park. And another one was near the library. The circles seemed to mark the places where the women in the photos were most often seen. He started to search online for Dr. Good. The first result was a website for a local clinic run by a Dr. Alistair Good. He clicked on the link and saw a photo of a smiling, middle-aged man with kind eyes and a reassuring demeanor. Dr. Good was a respected member of the community, known for his charitable work and his dedication to his patients. Mikey stared at the photo, his mind reeling. This couldn't be the same Dr. Good from the journal entries. This man looked like he wouldn't hurt a fly. But the evidence was piling up. The password, the journal entries, the maps, it all pointed to Dr. Good. He searched for news articles about missing persons in the area. He found several stories about young women who had disappeared without a trace over the past few months. He recognized some of their faces from the photos in the Project Nightingale folder. A wave of nausea washed over him. He was no longer just a petty thief trying to make a quick buck. He had stumbled onto something much bigger, something much more sinister. He had to decide what to do. Should he go to the police? Or should he just run and pretend he never saw anything? He knew that either choice could change his life forever. Sleep offered little escape that night. Mikey tossed and turned, haunted by the faces of the missing women and the smiling face of Dr. Good. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw the red circles on the map, pinpointing the locations where the women had last been seen. He woke up exhausted, the weight of his secret pressing down on him. He considered his options again, but this time, the choice seemed clearer. He couldn't just run. He couldn't live with the knowledge that he could have done something to help, but didn't. But going to the police was risky. He was a thief, after all. He'd broken into someone's house and stolen their laptop. They wouldn't exactly welcome him with open arms. He needed a plan. He couldn't just walk into the police station and say, "Hey, I stole this laptop, and it turns out the owner is a serial killer." They'd laugh him out of the building. He decided to gather more evidence. He needed something concrete, something that would convince the police that he was telling the truth. He spent the morning poring over the files on the laptop, searching for anything that could help his case. He found a folder labeled Patient Records. It was password protected, of course, but he was getting good at cracking passwords. He tried Doc Good again, but it didn't work this time. He tried other variations, Alistair, Good Clinic, Nightingale. Still nothing. He needed a new approach. He remembered seeing a calendar program on the desktop. Maybe it contained some clues. He opened the calendar and scrolled through the dates, looking for appointments or notes that might be relevant. He found a recurring appointment every Tuesday and Thursday evening, volunteer work, community center. Mikey searched online for community centers in the area and found one located just a few blocks from Dr. Good's clinic. He decided to pay the community center a visit. Maybe he could talk to someone who knew Dr. Good and learn more about his activities. It was a long shot, but it was the best he could do. He grabbed his jacket, put on a baseball cap to disguise himself, and headed out the door, the stolen laptop hidden in his backpack. He knew he was walking a dangerous path, but he was determined to see it through. He had to do the right thing, even if it meant risking everything. The community center was a bustling place, filled with kids playing basketball, seniors chatting over coffee, and volunteers helping with various activities. Mikey felt out of place in his baseball cap and worn-out jacket. He wandered around, trying to look inconspicuous, until he spotted a sign-up sheet for volunteers. He scanned the sheet, looking for Dr. Good's name. He found it listed under Tutor, Math and Science. The sign-up sheet indicated that Dr. Good volunteered every Tuesday and Thursday evening from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. It was currently 3 p.m. on a Tuesday. Mikey decided to wait. He found a quiet corner in the library and pretended to read a book, his eyes constantly scanning the entrance for Dr. Good. Hours passed slowly. The community center began to quiet down as the afternoon turned into evening. Finally, at 5:55 p.m., Dr. Good walked through the door. He was wearing a casual button-down shirt and khakis, and he carried a briefcase. He smiled warmly at the receptionist and headed towards the tutoring room. Mikey's heart pounded in his chest. This was it. He took a deep breath and followed Dr. Good, keeping a safe distance. He watched as Dr. Good entered the tutoring room, where several students were already waiting. Mikey couldn't just barge in and accuse Dr. Good of being a monster. He needed a plan. He noticed a small window in the door of the tutoring room. He crept closer and peered inside. He saw Dr. Good helping a young girl with a math problem. He was patient and kind, explaining the concepts clearly and encouraging her to keep trying. Mikey felt a flicker of doubt. Could this man really be capable of such horrible things? Then, he noticed something else. Dr. Good kept glancing at his watch, and his eyes kept darting towards the door. He seemed nervous and restless. Mikey also noticed that Dr. Good had placed his briefcase on the floor next to him, within easy reach. Suddenly, Dr. Good stood up and said, "Okay, everyone, let's take a 5-minute break." The students scattered, heading to the water fountain or chatting with each other. Dr. Good grabbed his briefcase and headed towards the hallway. Mikey knew this was his chance. He had to follow Dr. Good and see where he was going. He slipped out of the library and cautiously followed Dr. Good down the hallway, his heart pounding in his chest. The game was afoot. Dr. Good walked quickly, his eyes darting around as if he were afraid of being followed. He entered a small, empty office at the end of the hallway and closed the door behind him. Mikey pressed his ear against the door, straining to hear what was happening inside. He heard the click of a lock, followed by the sound of rustling papers. He couldn't make out any words, but he could sense that Dr. Good was agitated. After a few minutes, the door opened, and Dr. Good emerged, his face pale and his eyes wide with panic. He glanced around nervously, then hurried back to the tutoring room. Mikey waited a few seconds, then cautiously opened the door to the office. The room was small and sparsely furnished, with a desk, a chair, and a filing cabinet. The only thing out of place was a crumpled piece of paper lying on the desk. Mikey picked up the paper and unfolded it. It was a handwritten note, written in a shaky scrawl. The note read, "They're getting closer. Need to move her tonight. Location Alpha secure." Mikey's blood ran cold. Move her. Location Alpha. This was it. This was the proof he needed. He quickly took a photo of the note with his phone, then carefully placed it back on the desk. He knew he couldn't wait any longer. He had to go to the police, now. He slipped out of the office and hurried back to the entrance of the community center. As he was about to leave, he saw Dr. Good walking towards him, his face contorted with rage. "You!" Dr. Good shouted, pointing a finger at Mikey. "What are you doing here?" Mikey froze, his mind racing. He had to think fast. I'm here to volunteer," he stammered, trying to sound innocent. "I saw the sign-up sheet." Dr. Good narrowed his eyes, his gaze piercing. "I don't believe you," he said, his voice low and menacing. "I know who you are. You're the thief who stole my laptop." Mikey's heart sank. He'd been caught. He knew he couldn't outrun Dr. Good. He had to try to talk his way out of this. I can explain," he said, his voice trembling. "I didn't know what was on the laptop." Silence. Dr. Good snapped, grabbing Mikey by the arm. "You're coming with me." Mikey tried to pull away, but Dr. Good's grip was too strong. He was being dragged towards the back of the community center, towards a dark and ominous-looking storage room. He knew he was in serious danger. He had to do something, and fast. His life might depend on it. Mikey struggled against Dr. Good's grip, but the doctor was surprisingly strong. He kicked and squirmed, but it was no use. Dr. Good dragged him into the storage room, a dark and musty space filled with old boxes, broken furniture, and forgotten toys. Dr. Good shoved Mikey against a wall, pinning him with his forearm. "You know too much," he hissed, his eyes burning with rage. "I can't let you leave here." Mikey's mind raced. He had to find a way to escape. He looked around the room, searching for anything he could use as a weapon. He spotted a heavy metal pipe leaning against a shelf. "What are you going to do?" Mikey asked, trying to buy time. "Are you going to kill me?" Dr. Good smirked. "Let's just say you're going to disappear. Just like the others." Mikey knew he had to act fast. He feigned surrender, relaxing his body and lowering his head. Dr. Good loosened his grip slightly. That was all the opening Mikey needed. He suddenly lunged forward, grabbing the metal pipe and swinging it with all his might. The pipe connected with Dr. Good's head with a sickening thud. Dr. Good staggered backward, his eyes glazed over. Mikey didn't wait to see if Dr. Good was down for good. He dropped the pipe and ran towards the door, fumbling with the handle. He burst out of the storage room and into the hallway, his heart pounding in his chest. He ran as fast as he could, not stopping until he reached the front door of the community center. He burst out into the street, gasping for air. He knew Dr. Good would be after him. He had to get away, and he had to get to the police. He pulled out his phone and dialed 911, his hands shaking so badly he could barely hold the phone. "I need the police," he shouted into the phone. "I'm at the community center on Elm Street. A man is trying to kill me." He gave the dispatcher his name and a brief explanation of what had happened. He told them about the stolen laptop, the Project Nightingale files, and Dr. Good's plan to move her tonight. The dispatcher assured him that the police were on their way. Mikey knew he couldn't stay at the community center. He had to find a safe place to hide until the police arrived. He started running again, his eyes darting around, searching for a place to disappear. He knew his life was in danger, but he was determined to bring Dr. Good to justice. He had to protect the others, the ones who couldn't protect themselves. He had to do the right thing, even if it meant risking everything. Sirens wailed in the distance, growing louder with each passing second. Mikey ran blindly through the streets, his lungs burning and his legs aching. He didn't know where he was going, he just knew he had to get away from the community center. He ducked into a dark alleyway, hoping to catch his breath and gather his thoughts. He leaned against a brick wall, trying to calm his racing heart. He knew the police were coming, but he also knew that Dr. Good was still out there, and he was likely armed and dangerous. He checked his phone. The dispatcher had called back, wanting to confirm his location. He gave them the address of the alleyway and waited anxiously for the police to arrive. Within minutes, police cars swarmed the area, their flashing lights illuminating the darkness. Officers jumped out of their cars, their guns drawn. They quickly surrounded the community center and began searching for Dr. Good. Other officers approached Mikey, their faces stern. They handcuffed him and led him to a police car. "You're under arrest for burglary and assault," one of the officers said. Mikey didn't resist. He knew he was in trouble, but he also knew he had done the right thing. He had exposed Dr. Good for the monster he was, and he had potentially saved lives. He was taken to the police station and placed in an interrogation room. He was questioned for hours, recounting his story over and over again. He told them about the stolen laptop, the Project Nightingale files, and his encounter with Dr. Good at the community center. The police were initially skeptical, but as they investigated Mikey's claims, they began to realize that he was telling the truth. They searched Dr. Good's office and found the crumpled note that Mikey had photographed. They also searched Dr. Good's clinic and found evidence linking him to the missing persons cases. As the evidence mounted, the police realized they had a major case on their hands. They issued an all-points bulletin for Dr. Good, and a massive manhunt was launched. Meanwhile, Mikey remained in custody, facing serious charges. But he didn't care. He knew he had done the right thing. He had risked his life to expose a dangerous predator, and he had potentially saved countless lives. He was a thief, yes, but he was also a hero. And for the first time in a long time, he felt like he had something to be proud of. Even from behind bars, he felt a sense of peace knowing he had made a difference. The world needed saving, and he had answered the call. The news spread like wildfire. "Respected doctor suspected in missing persons cases," the headline screamed. Dr. Alastair Good, the pillar of the community, was now a fugitive, wanted for questioning in connection with the disappearance of several young women. The police released the photo of Dr. Good that Mikey had seen on the clinic's website. People were shocked and horrified. They couldn't believe that such a kind and generous man could be capable of such monstrous acts. The investigation intensified. The police searched Dr. Good's home, his clinic, and his office at the community center. They found more evidence linking him to the missing women, including DNA samples, personal belongings, and disturbing photographs. They also discovered a hidden room in Dr. Good's basement, a soundproofed cell with restraints and medical equipment. It was clear that Dr. Good had been holding his victims captive in this room before disposing of them. The manhunt for Dr. Good continued for several days. The police received hundreds of tips from the public, but none of them led to Dr. Good's capture. It was as if he had vanished into thin air. Meanwhile, Mikey remained in jail, awaiting his arraignment. His lawyer, a public defender named Sarah Jenkins, was working hard to get him released on bail. She argued that Mikey had acted in self-defense and that he had been instrumental in uncovering Dr. Good's crimes. "My client is a hero," she told the judge. "He risked his life to expose a dangerous predator and to protect the community. He deserves to be commended, not punished." The judge agreed to release Mikey on bail, but he was ordered to remain under house arrest and to wear an ankle monitor. He was also required to cooperate fully with the police investigation. Mikey was relieved to be out of jail, but he knew he wasn't out of the woods yet. He still faced serious charges, and Dr. Good was still on the loose. He couldn't rest until Dr. Good was brought to justice. He spent his days at home, glued to the television, watching the news coverage of the manhunt. He felt a sense of responsibility for what had happened. He had stolen the laptop that contained the evidence, and he had been the one to expose Dr. Good. He had to see this through to the end. He had to make sure that Dr. Good was caught and brought to justice, so that the families of the missing women could finally have closure. He knew the road ahead would be difficult, but he was determined to do whatever it took to make things right. He owed it to the victims, and he owed it to himself. Days turned into weeks, and the manhunt for Dr. Good continued. The police followed every lead, but they were always one step behind. Some people began to wonder if Dr. Good had managed to escape the country. Mikey, still under house arrest, felt increasingly frustrated. He wanted to do more to help, but he was confined to his apartment, his every move monitored by the ankle bracelet. He spent hours poring over the files on the stolen laptop, searching for any clue that might lead to Dr. Good's capture. He focused on the maps, studying the locations marked with red circles. He noticed that many of the locations were near bodies of water, rivers, lakes, and reservoirs. He wondered if Dr. Good had been using these waterways to dispose of his victims' bodies. He also noticed a pattern in the journal entries. The entries often referred to a location called Haven. He didn't know what Haven was, but he suspected it was a place where Dr. Good had been taking his victims. He decided to share his findings with the police. He called Detective Jenkins, his lawyer, and told her what he had discovered. Detective Jenkins was impressed by Mikey's insights. She promised to pass the information on to the lead investigators. A few days later, Detective Jenkins called Mikey with some exciting news. The police had found Haven. It was an abandoned cabin in the woods, located near a remote lake. The cabin was registered to a shell corporation, but the police suspected that Dr. Good had been using it as a hideout. The police organized a raid on the cabin. They surrounded the property and stormed inside, their guns drawn. But Dr. Good wasn't there. The cabin was empty, except for a few pieces of furniture and some camping gear. However, the police did find something else, a hidden compartment under the floorboards. Inside the compartment, they found a laptop, a gun, and a large sum of cash. The laptop was Dr. Good's. The police analyzed the laptop and discovered a treasure trove of information. They found detailed plans for Dr. Good's escape, including a route to Canada and a list of contacts who were willing to help him. They also found a series of encrypted files, even more sophisticated than the ones on the stolen laptop. The police were able to crack the encryption, and they discovered a detailed account of Dr. Good's crimes, including the names of his victims, the dates of their disappearances, and the locations where he had disposed of their bodies. The discovery of Dr. Good's laptop was a major breakthrough in the case. The police now had all the evidence they needed to bring him to justice. They intensified the manhunt, focusing their efforts on the Canadian border. They knew it was only a matter of time before they caught him. The net was closing in, and Dr. Good had nowhere left to run. The Canadian Border Patrol was on high alert. They had received a description of Dr. Good and his vehicle, and they were checking every car that crossed the border. They knew that Dr. Good was desperate, and he would likely try to sneak across. Days passed without any sign of Dr. Good. The police began to fear that he had managed to evade them. But they refused to give up. They knew that he couldn't stay hidden forever. Meanwhile, Mikey continued to cooperate with the police investigation. He provided them with all the information he had about Dr. Good, including his habits, his personality, and his possible motives. He also helped them to identify some of Dr. Good's victims. One evening, Detective Jenkins called Mikey with some news. They had received a tip that Dr. Good was hiding out in a motel in a small town near the border. The police were preparing to raid the motel. Mikey felt a surge of hope. This could be it. This could be the end of the manhunt. He waited anxiously for news, his heart pounding in his chest. Hours passed, but there was no word from Detective Jenkins. Mikey began to fear the worst. Had Dr. Good managed to escape again? Had the police made a mistake? Finally, in the early hours of the morning, Detective Jenkins called. Her voice was weary but triumphant. "We got him," she said. "We found Dr. Good at the motel. He didn't go down without a fight, but we managed to take him into custody." Mikey felt a wave of relief wash over him. It was over. Dr. Good was finally in custody, and he would be brought to justice. He had done it. He had helped to bring down a monster. He asked Detective Jenkins what would happen to Dr. Good. She told him that he would be charged with multiple counts of kidnapping, torture, and murder. He would likely spend the rest of his life in prison. Mikey also asked about the missing women. Detective Jenkins told him that the police were still searching for their bodies. They hoped to bring closure to their families. Mikey knew that the road to recovery would be long and difficult, but he was grateful that he had played a part in bringing Dr. Good to justice. He had done the right thing, even though it had come at a great cost. He had learned a valuable lesson, that even the most ordinary people can be capable of extraordinary evil, and that it is up to all of us to stand up against injustice, no matter the risk. His life would never be the same, but he could finally start to rebuild it, knowing that he had made a difference. Months passed. Dr. Good was tried and convicted on multiple counts of murder and kidnapping. He was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. Justice had finally been served. The families of the victims were grateful for Mikey's courage and his willingness to come forward. They knew that he had played a crucial role in bringing Dr. Good to justice. They thanked him for his bravery and his compassion. Mikey's own legal troubles were far from over. He still faced charges for burglary and assault. His lawyer, Sarah Jenkins, was working hard to negotiate a plea bargain with the prosecution. She argued that Mikey had acted in self-defense and that he had been instrumental in solving the missing persons cases. She also pointed out that he had no prior criminal record and that he was genuinely remorseful for his actions. The prosecution was sympathetic to Mikey's situation, but they also had a responsibility to uphold the law. They offered Mikey a plea bargain. If he pleaded guilty to burglary, they would drop the assault charge and recommend a lenient sentence. Mikey reluctantly agreed to the plea bargain. He knew that he had made a mistake by breaking into Dr. Good's house, and he was willing to accept the consequences of his actions. He appeared in court for his sentencing hearing. The courtroom was packed with reporters, curious onlookers, and family members of the victims. Mikey stood before the judge, his head bowed in shame. Sarah Jenkins spoke eloquently on Mikey's behalf, emphasizing his courage, his remorse, and his contribution to the Dr. Good investigation. She asked the judge to show mercy and to give Mikey a second chance. The judge listened attentively to Sarah's arguments. He acknowledged Mikey's positive qualities, but he also emphasized the seriousness of his crime. He sentenced Mikey to 2 years in prison, but he suspended the sentence and placed him on probation for 5 years. Mikey was relieved to avoid prison, but he knew that his life would never be the same. He had a criminal record, and he would always be known as the thief who had exposed Dr. Good. But he also knew that he had done the right thing. He had risked his life to bring a monster to justice, and he had helped to bring closure to the families of the victims. He could finally start to rebuild his life, knowing that he had made a difference. He decided to use his experience to help others. He volunteered at a local community center, mentoring at-risk youth and sharing his story. He wanted to show them that even people who make mistakes can turn their lives around and make a positive contribution to society. He hoped that his story would inspire others to stand up against injustice and to never give up on hope. He had been given a second chance, and he was determined to make the most of it. His nimble fingers, once used for stealing, would now be used for helping. 5 years passed. Mikey kept his promise. He stayed out of trouble, he completed his probation, and he continued to volunteer at the community center. He became a mentor to countless young people, sharing his story and inspiring them to make better choices. He even reconnected with his sister, and they rebuilt their relationship. He helped her with her finances, and he became a loving uncle to her children. He often thought about the missing women, the victims of Dr. Good's evil. He visited their families, offering his condolences and his support. He attended memorial services, honoring their lives and remembering their names. He never forgot the lesson he had learned, that even the smallest actions can have a profound impact on the world. He had stolen a laptop, and that one act had led to the exposure of a serial killer and the saving of countless lives. He also never forgot the importance of doing the right thing, even when it is difficult. He had risked his own safety to bring Dr. Good to justice, and he had paid a price for his actions. But he had no regrets. He knew that he had made the world a better place. One day, Mikey received a letter from a woman who had been one of Dr. Good's intended victims. She had been kidnapped and held captive in a hidden room in Dr. Good's basement, but she had managed to escape. In her letter, she thanked Mikey for saving her life. She told him that she would never forget his courage and his compassion. She said that he had given her hope when she had thought all hope was lost. Mikey was deeply moved by the woman's letter. It reminded him of the importance of his actions and the impact he had had on the lives of others. He knew that he had made a difference, and that was all that mattered. He continued to volunteer at the community center, mentoring young people and sharing his story. He became a symbol of hope and redemption in the community. He was living proof that even people who make mistakes can turn their lives around and make a positive contribution to society. His life had been transformed by a single act of theft, and he had used that experience to make the world a better place. He was finally at peace with himself, knowing that he had done everything he could to atone for his past mistakes. He was a thief turned hero, and his story would continue to inspire others for years to come. The end. Let's rewind a bit. Before Dr. Good's capture and Mikey's transformation, there was a crucial period of investigation. Let's revisit that time, focusing on the mounting evidence against the doctor. After Mikey's 911 call and subsequent arrest, the police, though initially wary, couldn't ignore the details he provided. They knew they had to follow up, even if it seemed far-fetched that a respected doctor could be involved in something so sinister. Detective Sarah Jenkins, a seasoned investigator with a sharp mind and a compassionate heart, was assigned to the case. She started by checking Dr. Good's alibi for the night of the home invasion. His story was that he was at home, reading. His wife, however, was out of town on a business trip. There were no witnesses to corroborate his story. This inconsistency raised a red flag. Detective Jenkins then delved into Dr. Good's background. She discovered that he had a clean record, both professionally and personally. He was well liked by his colleagues and patients, and he had a reputation for being a kind and generous man. But Detective Jenkins knew that appearances could be deceiving. Meanwhile, other officers were working to trace the IP address of the laptop that Mikey had stolen. They discovered that the laptop was registered to Dr. Alistair Good. This was a major breakthrough. Armed with this information, Detective Jenkins obtained a warrant to search Dr. Good's home, his clinic, and his office at the community center. The search began early the next morning. At Dr. Good's home, the police found a meticulously organized study filled with medical books and research papers. Everything seemed normal, almost too normal. But then, they discovered a hidden room in the basement, concealed behind a false wall. Inside the room, they found a soundproofed cell with restraints and medical equipment. The room was clean and sterile, but it was clear that it had been used for nefarious purposes. This was the smoking gun. At Dr. Good's clinic, the police found a locked cabinet containing a collection of disturbing photographs. The photographs depicted young women in various states of undress, some of whom were known to be missing. At Dr. Good's office at the community center, the police found a crumpled note in the trash can. The note read, "They're getting closer. Need to move her tonight. Location Alpha secure." This was the same note that Mikey had photographed. The evidence was overwhelming. Dr. Good was a suspect in the missing persons cases. Detective Jenkins issued an arrest warrant, but Dr. Good had already disappeared. The manhunt was on. The net was closing in, but Dr. Good was still one step ahead. The chase was just beginning. Back to the motel raid near the Canadian border. The police, acting on a credible tip, surrounded the unassuming motel in the dead of night. Detective Jenkins led the charge, her heart pounding with a mixture of anticipation and dread. She knew that Dr. Good was dangerous and unpredictable, and she had to be prepared for anything. They knocked on the door of Dr. Good's room, announcing themselves as police. There was no answer. Detective Jenkins ordered the door to be breached. The officers stormed into the room, their guns drawn. Dr. Good was inside, but he wasn't alone. He was holding a young woman hostage, a terrified look on her face. He had a gun pointed at her head. "Don't come any closer." Dr. Good shouted, his voice trembling. "I'll shoot her." Detective Jenkins tried to reason with him. "Dr. Good, please, don't do this. Let her go. It's over." Dr. Good refused to listen. He was desperate and irrational. He knew that his life was over, and he was determined to take someone with him. A tense standoff ensued. The police surrounded the room, and snipers took positions outside. Detective Jenkins continued to try to negotiate with Dr. Good, but he was uncooperative. Suddenly, Dr. Good made a move. He lunged towards the window, intending to escape. The police reacted quickly. They fired a volley of shots, hitting Dr. Good in the leg. He fell to the ground, writhing in pain. The police rushed into the room and disarmed him. They secured the hostage, who was unharmed but traumatized. Dr. Good was taken into custody and transported to a nearby hospital for treatment. The news of his capture spread like wildfire, shocking the community and bringing a sense of relief to the families of the missing women. The police investigation continued. They searched Dr. Good's motel room and found more evidence linking him to the missing persons cases. They also discovered a detailed plan for his escape to Canada, including a list of contacts who were willing to help him. The news media descended on the town, eager to cover the story of the respected doctor turned serial killer. The case became a national sensation. Let's rewind again, focusing on Mikey's perspective after fleeing the community center. He was running, scared and unsure, but deep down, he knew he couldn't keep running forever. He had to face the music. He found a secluded spot in a park, hiding behind a large oak tree. He watched the news reports on his phone, seeing the chaos and the police activity at the community center. He knew that he was wanted for questioning, both for the attack on Dr. Good and for the original burglary. He considered his options. He could disappear, start a new life somewhere else. But he knew that wouldn't be right. He had to do what was right, even if it meant facing the consequences of his actions. He saw the news reports about Dr. Good, the respected doctor who was now a fugitive, wanted for questioning in connection with the missing persons cases. He saw the faces of the missing women, their families pleading for their safe return. He knew that he had played a role in all of this. He had stolen the laptop that contained the evidence, and he had been the one to expose Dr. Good. He realized that he couldn't just run and hide. He had to come forward and tell the police everything he knew. He had to help them bring Dr. Good to justice. He knew it was a risky decision. He was a thief, and he had attacked Dr. Good. He could face serious charges. But he also knew that it was the right thing to do. He couldn't live with himself if he didn't try to help. He took a deep breath and dialed 911. He told the dispatcher who he was and where he was. He said that he wanted to turn himself in and cooperate with the police investigation. The dispatcher told him to stay where he was and that officers would be dispatched to his location. Mikey waited anxiously, his heart pounding in his chest. He knew that his life was about to change forever. Within minutes, police cars arrived at the park. Officers approached Mikey, their guns drawn. He raised his hands in surrender and followed their instructions. He was handcuffed and taken into custody. As he was being led to the police car, he looked back at the community center, the scene of his fateful encounter with Dr. Good. He knew that he had made a difficult choice, but he also knew that he had done the right thing. He was finally ready to face the consequences of his actions. He was no longer running from his past. He was ready to confront it. He was ready to pay his debt to society. He was ready to start a new chapter in his life. A chapter where he would strive to be a better person, to make amends for his mistakes, and to use his experience to help others. The road ahead would be long and difficult, but he was determined to make it right. He knew he had a lot to prove, but he was ready to prove it. He was ready to be a new man. At the police station, Mikey was questioned extensively by Detective Jenkins. He recounted everything that had happened, from the initial burglary to his encounter with Dr. Good at the community center. He didn't hold anything back. He told them about the stolen laptop, the Project Nightingale files, and the note he had found in Dr. Good's office. He provided them with the photo he had taken of the note. He also told them about his conversation with Dr. Good, the doctor's threats, and his subsequent attack in self-defense. He explained that he had been scared and confused, but that he had ultimately done what he thought was right. Detective Jenkins listened patiently, taking detailed notes. She could see that Mikey was genuinely remorseful for his actions and that he was committed to helping them bring Dr. Good to justice. Mikey also told them where he had hidden the stolen laptop. He explained that he had been afraid to keep it with him, so he had stashed it in a locker at the bus station. He gave them the locker number and the combination. The police retrieved the laptop and examined its contents. They found the Project Nightingale files, just as Mikey had described. They also found the maps with the red circles, the photographs of the missing women, and the journal entries detailing Dr. Good's sinister plans. The laptop provided them with a wealth of information that would be crucial in their investigation. It confirmed everything that Mikey had told them, and it gave them valuable leads to follow. Detective Jenkins was impressed by Mikey's honesty and his cooperation. She knew that he had made a mistake by breaking into Dr. Good's house, but she also knew that he had played a vital role in exposing a dangerous predator. She promised Mikey that she would do everything she could to help him with his legal troubles. She knew that he deserved a second chance. As the investigation progressed, the police began to uncover the full extent of Dr. Good's crimes. They discovered that he had been abducting, torturing, and murdering young women for years. He had been living a double life, presenting himself as a respected doctor while secretly preying on vulnerable victims. The discovery sent shockwaves through the community. People were horrified to learn that such a monster had been living among them. They were grateful for Mikey's courage and his willingness to come forward. He had saved countless lives by exposing Dr. Good's evil. Mikey became an unlikely hero. He was a thief, yes, but he was also a savior. He had made a mistake, but he had redeemed himself by doing the right thing. His story was a testament to the power of redemption and the importance of standing up against injustice. The community would never forget his courage and his selflessness. He was a reminder that even the most ordinary people can be capable of extraordinary acts of heroism. His actions would inspire others to do the right thing, no matter the cost. Mikey's sentencing hearing was a somber affair. The courtroom was filled with the families of Dr. Good's victims, their faces etched with grief and anger. They wanted justice, not only for Dr. Good but also for the man who had broken into their homes and stolen their belongings. Sarah Jenkins, Mikey's lawyer, argued passionately for leniency. She presented evidence of Mikey's cooperation with the police, his remorse for his actions, and his instrumental role in bringing Dr. Good to justice. She emphasized that Mikey had risked his own safety to expose a dangerous predator and that he had saved countless lives. She also called several witnesses to testify on Mikey's behalf. The witnesses included detectives, community leaders, and even family members of the victims. They all spoke of Mikey's courage, his honesty, and his commitment to making amends for his mistakes. The prosecution acknowledged Mikey's cooperation, but they also emphasized the seriousness of his crime. They argued that burglary was a serious offense and that Mikey should be punished accordingly. The judge listened attentively to all the arguments and the testimony. He recognized that Mikey had made a significant contribution to the Dr. Good investigation, but he also acknowledged that he had committed a crime. He sentenced Mikey to 5 years in prison, but he suspended 4 years of the sentence, placing him on probation for 5 years. He also ordered Mikey to perform 200 hours of community service, working with at-risk youth. Mikey embraced his probation and his community service. He knew that he had been given a second chance, and he was determined to make the most of it. He found purpose in helping others, sharing his story and inspiring them to make better choices. He worked tirelessly at the community center, mentoring young people who were struggling with poverty, addiction, and violence. He taught them valuable life skills, helped them with their homework, and encouraged them to pursue their dreams. He became a role model for these young people, showing them that it was possible to overcome adversity and to turn their lives around. He inspired them to believe in themselves and to strive for a better future. He also reconnected with his family. He patched things up with his sister, and he became a loving uncle to her children. He helped her with her finances, and he supported her in every way he could. He never forgot the victims of Dr. Good's crimes. He visited their families, offering his condolences and his support. He attended memorial services, honoring their lives and remembering their names. He carried the weight of his past with him, but he didn't let it define him. He used it as a source of strength and inspiration. He knew that he could never fully atone for his mistakes, but he could use his experience to make the world a better place. He dedicated his life to helping others, to fighting injustice, and to spreading hope. He became a symbol of redemption, a testament to the power of second chances. Years later, Mikey was a changed man. He was no longer the desperate thief known as Fingers. He was now a respected community leader, a mentor, and a friend. He had found purpose in his life, and he was at peace with himself. He often reflected on the events that had led him to this point. He knew that it had all started with a single act of desperation, a decision to break into a house and steal a laptop. But that one act had set in motion a chain of events that had changed his life forever. He had stumbled upon a dark secret, he had risked his own safety to expose a dangerous predator, and he had ultimately helped to bring justice to the victims and their families. He had made mistakes, but he had also done the right thing. He had been given a second chance, and he had made the most of it. He knew that he would never be able to fully erase his past, but he could continue to strive to be a better person, to make amends for his mistakes, and to use his experience to help others. That was all that mattered. He had found redemption, and he had made a difference. His life had been transformed by a single act of theft, and he had used that experience to make the world a better place. The end.